This video will be on applying the percent equation, problem type 1. All right, so whenever you have a percent equation, there's a couple of different ways that we're going to be looking at it. So let's go ahead and read this and let's translate it, all right? Let's use some different colors. So the first part is 15%. So percent really means two things, per divided by, and cent, 100. So 15%, I like to think of it as 15 divided by 100. Now, whenever you have the word of means that we're multiplying. So of is like a portion. We multiply in order to find that. What number, that's our variable. So 15 over 100, or 15% of some number, x, is, remember, is just equals, and 12 is what we're given, right? So basically you want to break it down, very beautiful, into a mathematical equation from an English sentence, right? So 15 divided by 100 times something equals 12. And I like to think of a possible range before I even start this question, right? We're looking for a number that 15% of it is 12. Well, if 15% of that number was 15, then that would mean that that number was 100, right? Because 15% of 100 is 15. So we know that our answer is, we know that our answer is going to be somewhere near 100, right? Maybe between like 50 and 150, right? It's going to be somewhere close to 100 because 15% of 100 is 15, so probably something a little bit smaller than 100. So let's go ahead and let's solve for x. Well, if we want to solve for x, the first thing that we could do is just simplify the left-hand side, right? So 15 times x, this is like x over 1. So that would be 15x divided by 100. And on the right-hand side, we just have 12. All right, well, let's try and get rid of this fraction. We want to isolate the variable. So if it's being divided by 100, then let's multiply by 100 on both sides. That way those cancel, but whenever you do to one side, you have to do to the other in order to keep the equation balanced. So on the left-hand side, you'll have 15x, and on the right-hand side, you'll have equals 1200 or 1200. Now, in order to get x by itself, just divide by 15, since this is multiplication. There's no sign in between them. And either on your calculator or through long division, you'll see that x equals 80, which is kind of like what we said. It was close to 100, a little less than 100 probably, so it makes sense. So 15% of 80, 80 is that number. 15% of 80 is 12. Okay, go ahead and make sure that you have this written down. I'm going to erase it in order to do B. All right, so now we're asking what percent, right? So we're looking for x as a percent. So x as a percent out of 100 of 40 of, remember that's multiplication, of 40, so times 40, is 22, right? So equals 22. All right, so let's go ahead and simplify this and then let's solve it. So just like we did last time, what would this be? This would be 40x divided by 100. Sorry, that's a 1, equals 22. Now, in order to get the x by itself, first we want to multiply both sides by 100 so that we don't have a fraction here. And we'll have 40x equals 2200. Another way you can think about this is think about it without the extra zeros, right? If 40x equals 2200, then 4x equals 220. So I think that makes it easier to contextualize, because if we divide this by 4 on both sides, then 4 times 50 would be 200, and 4 times 5 is 20, so this would be x equals 55. And let's make sure that that really makes sense in this context, right? Let's replace our variable with our answer and see if it makes sense, right? So is 55% of 40 22? Let's think 55% is a little bigger than half, right? And half of 40 is 20. This is a little bigger than half of 40, so it makes perfect sense.